And we're back. Welcome back from our break. We're entering our last segment before our panel discussion.
And it is an honor to welcome family member Angela Harvey with us today. Miss Harvey is a social worker. She's a motivational speaker. She's a journey guide. 2 years ago, looking for ways to save her relationship, she found her way to Family Connections, which is NEABPD's flagship program for family members of people who struggle with the symptoms of borderline personality disorder. She then became a Family Connections class leader, and luckily for NEABPD, recently became their coordinator of diversity. Ms. Harvey's story touches on many points of identity: age, gender, expertise, ethnicity, sexual orientation, occupation. Angela, thank you for being here with us to share your family experience today. Thank you.
It's definitely my pleasure. Greetings and growth to you all. Yes, I kind of speak that way all the time. My name is Angela Harvey, and like she said, I'm a social worker, I'm a motivational speaker, a counselor, a facilitator of growth. But I'm also codependent, and I have a loved one or two or three who are challenged with BPD or emotional dysregulation. I have to give you all a disclaimer and tell you that none of my loved ones wanted me to disclose their personal aspects of their story. However, since half of their story is some of my story, we all agreed that I could do a mashup, which is like combining all the experience that I have with them into one, just for the benefit of this presentation. That means you all will get a BPD combo meal supersized. I know that we have a mixed audience, so I'm going to attempt to dispense my lived experience in a way that will benefit the clinicians and the students, researchers, and those with BPD, as well as those of us that love and support them. My truth is that I am a Black lesbian woman who is strong and fiercely independent. I conquer the world with my words, can talk King Kong off the top of a building, and many folks that have experienced me executing my passion say that I've changed their lives. Surely, if my wisdom and my knowledge could change a stranger, my love and support should be able to change my loved one. That is not my testimony. So with as much knowledge as I had, I was caught completely off guard by my loved one who thought every trip I took upstairs or out of the state was me abandoning them. Although they were known by many, they had very few intimate friendships or healthy relationships. They were what most would call wealthy and self-made, with maybe a rags to riches story, yet admit to lack of personal confidence, assurance, and could be extremely paranoid at times. Their wealth made it easy for them to buy boats and cars and jewelry and other expensive items when their impulsivity kicked in and took over. Most often, these purchases left them with regret, shame, and resentment. They could wake up at 8 a.m. requesting to have folks over for dinner, and by noon, they would be totally against the idea as if they didn't initiate it. African Americans aren't known for experiencing or verbalizing or speaking much about suicide. However, they once told me that they had thoughts of not wanting to live when I was away visiting my grandchildren, even though it was a trip that they suggested and paid for. Their mood would swing and vary so often. I had begun to live a life filled with uncertainty and anxiety. Today, I'm clear that eggshells are to be cracked and not walked on. Although the world was theirs for the taking, they were successful by most definitions, financially well off, and on the top of their game. They lacked confidence, assurance, and had consistent bouts of jealous thoughts that left them feeling worthless, inadequate, and sad. Often there was nothing that I could do to reassure them. They didn't display emotions that I would describe as anger, but as it turns out, they would later admit to taking passive-aggressive swings at my person and my passion and my personal life often when they felt emotional dysregulated. Their symptoms became so consistent that I eventually began journaling the behavior and quickly became convinced that they were challenged with BPD. I also discovered that their challenge definitely caused me to second guess every part of who I was to them and in my own world. I must bring it to your attention that I consider myself to have some very bold intersectionalities. I'm educated, successful by my definition, fierce by my definition as well. I'm an African American, I'm a lesbian, I'm a woman, I'm 55, AKA 55, and I'm a boss in my own right. However, it was the same sectionality that kept me in bondage for years while making many failed attempts to love, support, and understand my loved ones. As an African American, their symptoms kept me struggling to maintain my personal strength and the emotional strength my culture is known for. As a woman, their symptoms challenged my mental capacity that went largely unchallenged at this level. As a lesbian, their symptoms had me questioning my sexuality and considering heterosexuality. Only for a fleeting moment. I thought to myself, is this what a relationship with a woman feels like? As a woman of means, their symptoms had me unable to enjoy the life I had worked so hard to create for myself. My self-esteem as it relates to my desire to nurture, love, and support was also challenged. As a partner and family member, their symptoms had me feeling worthless and confused, abused, inadequate, powerless, shameful, guilty, and embarrassed. As a bold and fierce woman, these symptoms removed the B from bold and left me just feeling old and tired and less than enough and nowhere near fierce. And as an educated educator, the symptoms kept me doubting my own knowledge, suppressing my known truth, feeling uncertain of my professional effectiveness, and ultimately stepping away from my God-given assignment as a growthologist. I no longer felt equipped to help grown folks grow up. They were a mess. I was a bigger mess. They were unconsciously dysregulated, and I was intentionally dysregulated. We all needed help. I needed help. So with hurt feelings, and after pulling out all of my hair, yes, I went looking for help where most people find it, Google. I looked high and low for articles, research papers, anything I could read that would help me align my experience in my relationship with my identity. Unfortunately, there was and is very little information and research available that speaks to African Americans, LGBTQ, older Americans, and BPD. After countless hours of research and therapy, lots of couch time, yes, I have a therapist, I found NEABPD and Family Connections. This organization and this class saved my life. Yes, I'm only here today because of them. They also saved the lives of a few other people in my life. So in 2017, I took my very first Family Connections class. And I have to admit, I was angry. I was angry and I was bitter. I went looking for ways to change my loved one, not ways to change me. So I completed the 12-week course, but I walked away frustrated and in disbelief. I wasn't the one with the problem. I wasn't going to radically accept anyone's dysfunction or abuse. I wasn't validating anything or anyone. That's just where I was. You know, to me, it was just a waste of time and I was never coming back. My anger allowed me to hear, you know, those things that were said in class, but it didn't allow me to listen. It was for this reason that my intimate relationship was actually going to be coming to an end and my family relationships began to quickly deteriorate. So not only now was I equipped with some knowledge, but now I was angry about that knowledge. I have no one to blame but myself. And I know that I teach and preach that unless you apply the knowledge that you learn, the paint, the color of your world will never change. I didn't even buy a brush. I never even opened up the paint. So of course, my world just got darker. There was no application of the knowledge. It was during this time that I was hosting a broke down book series of the book, The Four Agreements by Ruiz. It's one of my favorite books and I swear by it. I gift it to strangers and I guilt most of my family and friends into reading it. However, I had been in so much pain that I'd forgotten my saving life agreements. These were agreements that absolutely in the last decade of my life have saved my life over and over. Those agreements are to be impeccable with my word, to not make assumptions, to always do my best, and don't take anything personal. Well, I wasn't doing really good at this at all. In my relationships with my loved ones, I was not impeccable with my word or my understanding. I had made a million assumptions. The most damaging was that these were bad people and I should detach and isolate, my go-to emotions. I was so far from my best that I didn't even recognize myself. And I took every behavior, every word, every action, every conversation personally. And I did what I said I would never do. I went back to them, family connections. So in 2018, I found myself back in my second family connections class, very grateful that none of the people there had the same problem as me the first time. Thus, they were all new people and thought that I was new as well. That time, I allowed myself to be open. To be open means to be exposed and to be vulnerable. It's a mandate that I have for all of my own clients. Thus, I challenge myself to do the same. Well, it clicked. I got it. Family connections gave me my sexy back. It gave me the S, the support, the skills. It gave me the E, the education and the empowerment. It gave me the X, the diagnosis and the treatment, and the Y, which is you, which is me. I learned the importance of validation, how helpful mindfulness can be to my own sanity and to the sanctity of my relationships with my loved ones. Oh, and that radical acceptance. I learned what it is and what it isn't. This was very challenging for me to get my mind around because initially it just looked like me being made a fool of and me allowing someone else to take advantage of me. I learned ways that I could decrease my emotional reactivity. It hadn't occurred to me how dysregulated I had become while attempting to protect myself. I learned ways to problem solve and to manage emotional discord with my loved ones. And most importantly, I learned how to balance my desire to change my loved ones with my need to accept them just as they were. And I was so excited. I was very excited. I'm still excited about what I'd learned and the emotional relief that I was able to experience that I immediately wanted everyone to have the same experience. So in 2019, I went on to take the Family Connections leadership training so that I could be able to co-lead a Family Connections class. It was during this training that I took notice that I had not seen too many faces that looked like mine or identified as I do. But that was okay. That's okay with me because where there is none, I intentionally insert myself. That's just how I grow. While in class, I began to make a list and I actually brought the list. I still have the list in the book with me. I began to make a list of reasons that I, as an African-American, would be challenged by some of the symptoms of BPD. Many of these symptoms speak of disrespect and likely would be attributed to just that. The symptoms of BPD would be seen as disrespectful, disobedience, defiance. It would be inappropriate. It would be a lack of gratitude, embarrassment, indifference, abusive, and unacceptable from a child, from a partner, or even a family member. These are considered oppressive conditions and not tolerated and certainly not seen by most as a reason to seek mental health intervention, but instead to discipline, to disengage, to dismiss, and to drop off. I checked myself. I kept my ears and eyes open, and I made a promise to keep growing. So in 2020, during the pandemic, I taught my very first Family Connections class, and it was an amazing experience watching 15 family members elevate from hopelessness to hopeful, and then to crawl from darkness to walk into the light. That was definitely my pleasure. I have such a profound appreciation for NEABPD. They are a group of the most dedicated and purposeful professionals and volunteers that I've ever encountered. So it doesn't matter if you teach, preach, support, love on, or live with someone with BPD. Please know and believe we can only help them by being dedicated to our own growth and change. We can only help them by increasing our own understanding and practicing our own radical acceptance. I assure you, there isn't another legal way to nurture and maintain a healthy, successful relationship with our loved ones with BPD. I just needed to give you guys an update. 2 of the 3 of my loved ones are currently getting help from DBT therapists, of which I connected them with. That is such a blessing. 2 or 3 of them have increased their self-awareness. They positively respond to my new skills, sometimes using validation skills themselves. They're able to verbalize emotions in real time and manage them much better. They're able to express their truth and set boundaries. One has even become a poster child for the benefits of therapy, which if you knew her, you would think, wow, like I do every day. And more importantly, we're currently working on creating and nurturing a healthy friendship and relationship that is mutually beneficial. I've done a little growing as well. I've grown from seeking to change my loved ones to change seeking for myself. I've grown from being unintentional in validating and judgmental to intentionally validating and non-judgmental. I've grown from thinking I wasn't the problem to understanding I surely was not the solution. I've grown from accepting to radically accepting. I've grown from being angry and unforgiving to compassionate and forgiving. I've grown and I'm still growing. By the way, 3 years ago, I was so committed that I applied for a position. Yes. So as of February, I'm not only a client, I'm the coordinator of diversity, helping to bring BPD sexy to underserved and minority communities. I'm hoping that my lived experience allows you all to be more hopeful, helpful, and heroic. And remember, with validation, radical acceptance, and mindfulness, shift happens, especially in our relationships with our loved ones with BPD. I thank you all for your interest, your time, and your attention. It has truly been my pleasure.
Angela, thank you so much for your story and for sharing it with us so compellingly. Many notes of thanks from the audience. You have touched the family members in the audience as well as everybody else very, very deeply. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your description of the Family Connections program.
Absolutely.
We'll see you back here at the panel shortly. Thank you
yes,
so much.
You shall.